The video game industry was booming in the 1990s. With Sega trickling out of the console war, it was now between the powerhouses of Nintendo and Sony. Both companies were doing extraordinarily well, however, each was mastering its own niche. Nintendo focused its games on child and family-friendly audiences, whereas Sony focused on teens and adults. Sony desperately wanted to tap into the family-friendly market to expand its products and compete with Nintendo. What better way to do that than to follow the new trend of 3D platforming, revolutionized by a particular plumber with a bushy stash. Sony quickly went to an up-and-coming development studio, Insomniac, and had them create one of Sony's many iconic mascots, a cute purple dragon voiced by SpongeBob, hatched from his egg. His name was Spyro. Hello everyone, my name is OCDsaster, and this is Nostalgia Nibble. In this series, I hop into a time machine and retroactively visit some of my favorite past games and discuss them. Today we'll be looking at Spyro the Dragon and how unique the level designs are. Because there is a remake of Spyro the Dragon, I will be using that footage instead of the original because it just looks nice. With that being said, grab a snack, sit back, and get ready to soar the creative level designs of Spyro the Dragon. Christmas morning of the year 2000. I was 5 years old and received my first home console, the PlayStation. With it, a shiny copy of Spyro, Year of the Dragon. Year of the Dragon was the third installment of the Spyro trilogy. I had no idea who Spyro was or any of the other cute characters on the front of the case, but I was excited to try my first game out, and I most certainly had fun. Running through the grassy pastures of artisans or trekking through the snowy Alps of magic crafters? Wait a minute. These aren't Spyro 3 worlds. 5-year-old me was confused because the back of the game case and the paper user manual, remember those, said I could rescue and play as Spyro's friends. Hours into the game, I could only say fairies, and none of the characters on the case could be found. Weirder was that my neighbor, who said he had the game, came over and said, quote, "My game isn't like this." Looking at the CD instead of the case itself, I realized the store clerk at EB Games, remember that, put the wrong disc in the case. And man, I am so glad they did. This story was a sketchy yard sale away from being a creepypasta. Needless to say, the case was a Spyro 3, but I actually was owning Spyro 1. Spyro was one of the two games I owned for the PlayStation at the time, the other being Pac-Man 3D World. Spyro was definitely the game I binged the most. It was simple, easy, and fun. For babies. Before Spyro was Crash Bandicoot, created by Naughty Dog. Crash Bandicoot was meant for all audiences, but its linear platforming and overall difficulty spike made it extremely challenging for younger players to stay engaged and complete the game without breaking their controllers or crying to their parents. Spyro took more inspiration from Mario 64's life system and level design. What made Spyro stand out were a few things. One, Spyro is a quadrupedal character. Running on all four legs led to a different traversal design for the player and abilities that were not seen before. Sure, you have the usual fire breath because you're a dragon, but you could also charge at enemies with your horns. The most essential and unique mechanic in the game links us to the level of philosophy and overall design of Spyro 1. This mechanic is gliding. When the player holds the jump button while airborne, they soar in the sky for a limited amount of time and gradually descend. This mechanic revolutionized the way 3D platforming could be done. Mario had his wing cap ability in Mario 64, however, most of the levels in Mario 64 were more vertical. Spyro levels are horizontal. Yes, terrain and pathways have altitude, but most of the time to get to them, Spyro had to glide horizontally over to them from varying heights. Spyro encourages exploration. Most 3D platformers do. Collectibles are usually the way to do that. Players must collect gems and dragon eggs to advance in the game and release dragons from statue imprisonment. Spyro 1 has a fascinating structure to go about this. Like any well-designed game, the more you progress, the more complex the levels get. Spyro follows this model, but instead of making enemies more challenging, the developers made finding collectibles more challenging the farther you go into the game. Spyro has an exciting route or path system. Usually, a more linear and straightforward way will lead you to the hub world exit at every level. By following the obvious path, the player will most likely collect 1 or 2 statue dragons and a third of the gems in that level. This is fine, but for Spyro 1's endgame, you must have collected almost everything to face the final boss. The design for most Spyro levels are as follows. You have the easiest and most obvious route to get to the end of the level, but by taking that route, you'll have barely collected anything. As you travel this main path, you see hallways or corridors branching off with more collectibles. The main pathway typically increases in altitude. You can branch off the main path and get more collectibles on the outer trails, but wait! There are chests up on that ledge, but it's too high. Take a mental note of that and go back to the main trail. Oh shoot, you're at the portal, meaning you're at the end of the level. Wait a minute, you're at a higher altitude now. You turn your camera 180 degrees and realize you can see that very ledge you couldn't reach before with the chests. You take a deep breath and take a leap of faith. Next thing you know, Spyro glides into the sky, slowly descending onto the ledge to get the chests. You decided to explore the level and use that glide mechanic to reach locations you could not before, thus being rewarded with more collectibles to better help your endgame goals. This is the basic design of Spyro levels. It is simple but unique compared to other platformers of the time. Later levels become more challenging in Spyro 1. Some secret areas with collectibles are a pain to get because more mechanics are introduced than glide. Charge pads increase Spyro's speed as he charges. You can stack these speed boosts to accelerate faster and faster and then jump to get maximum height. With that maximum height, you can then glide farther to reach more challenging to get destinations. Fairies can also create sparkling spinning things that lift Spyro high into the air so he can glide farther. Although not terrible in the grand scheme of things, these mechanics make for some more frustrating attempts to get collectibles because your timing and inputs need to be almost precise, or you'll fall off the stage, losing a life. There is one Spyro 1 level that to this day, I cannot do without a walkthrough. I am still determining how any kid could even figure this out without a guide. The level is none other than Beastmaker's Treetops. Not only does the game expect you to maintain a charge boost, but also to go down charged pads and jump to faraway platforms without stopping or falling off, but it also wants you to go down one path, do a quick charge jump to the right, and then run up a course to jump and glide to get that last of the collectibles to 100% the level. It is absolutely insane. Besides the bullshit of the Treetops level, I think the Spyro levels are well designed. More specifically, the increasing altitude, horizontal exploration, and implementation of the glide mechanic make for an overall unique and stimulating 3D platforming experience. If you liked the video, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you want to see more nostalgic content like this, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment down below on your opinions of Spyro. Did you play the games? Which one is your favorite? Let me know.